The Desert Killer, a Psychological Profile. Welcome to the haunting tale of David Leonard Wood, a convicted serial killer whose crimes turned the sun-scorched deserts of El Paso, Texas, into one of the most terrifying crime scenes in recent history. Known as the Desert Killer, Wood is a name that sends shivers down the spine of locals and true crime aficionados alike. His story isn't just about the heinous acts he committed. It's about the chilling depths of human darkness and the unanswered questions that linger even decades later. Between May and August of 1987, 6 young girls and women disappeared, their lifeless bodies eventually uncovered in the unforgiving heat of the desert. Was it chance? Was it madness? Or was it something far more sinister? Today we unravel the chilling profile of a man who denies his crimes yet sits on death row, awaiting execution on March 13, 2025. Born on June 20, 1957 in El Paso, Texas, David Leonard Wood had a seemingly uneventful beginning. But like many stories of this kind, the seeds of darkness often take root silently and early. Wood's childhood offers little public insight, but reports indicate a troubled mind marked by deviant behavior even in his younger years. Petty crimes and brushes with the law followed him into adulthood, with suggestions of an inclination toward manipulation and deceit, long before the crimes that would define his life. What makes a man like Wood descend into the depths of depravity? Was it nature, nurture, or a mixture of both? As his story unfolds, the details of his early life provide faint but crucial clues to the monster he became. The year 1987 began like any other in El Paso, but by May, dread began to seep into the community as young girls and women began to vanish. 6 victims between May and August, 6 lives brutally stolen. Their profiles varied, but each one of these women became prey to a predator with a chilling modus operandi. David Leonard Wood selected the vast, barren desert as a disposal ground, a place where the hot winds and remote sands felt indifferent to the horrors buried beneath. The discovery of the bodies scattered and buried, as if the predator hoped to erase their existence, sent shockwaves through El Paso. As forensic teams worked tirelessly to piece together evidence, the true scope of this nightmare began to emerge. One by one, the lifeless remains of the missing women were unearthed. The desert, silent in its witness, began to tell its grisly tale. These weren't simply murders. They were calculated, horrifying acts designed to control and dominate. Forensic evidence hinted at a frightening level of cunning. The predator had chosen areas so remote, so isolated, that it seemed almost impossible for anyone to stumble upon the graves by accident. As authorities painstakingly connected the dots, the emerging pattern pointed to one cold conclusion: the killer wasn't stopping on his own. David Leonard Wood became a suspect after law enforcement dug through his criminal record, which showed a history of violent sexual assaults. He had the means, the knowledge of the area, and the temperament. Witnesses and circumstantial evidence led investigators to hone in on Wood quickly. Arrested and charged, Wood continuously denied involvement, projecting an image of innocence even as the walls closed in. But the community wasn't convinced, and neither were law enforcement officers. The evidence, though largely circumstantial, began to paint a picture of a deeply troubled individual with the capacity to commit unimaginable crimes. By the time David Leonard Wood stood trial in 1992, El Paso was a community that had one foot rooted in fear, the other in the hope of justice. Prosecutors presented a damning case: the bodies, the patterns, and Wood's previous bouts with the legal system. Wood's defense maintained his innocence, pointing to inconsistencies in witness testimonies and the lack of direct physical evidence. It became a battle of beliefs. Could the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Wood was guilty of these heinous crimes? In the end, the jury believed the answer was yes. Wood was convicted and sentenced to death, a decision that set him on a decades-long journey through the appeals process, but offered families and the community a bitter sense of closure. Despite his conviction, David Leonard Wood has continuously claimed he is innocent. Over the years, he has filed appeals requesting a reevaluation of his case. His narrative raises age-old questions about human psychology and justice. Is he a manipulative predator refusing culpability, or did the legal system fail? For psychological profilers, this behavior might suggest a man clinging to a fabricated version of himself, a version that cannot admit the monstrous truths of what he has done. Or perhaps his denials hold some semblance of truth. Understanding David Leonard Wood requires us to delve deep into the psychology of a predator. Serial killers often follow patterns, and Wood was no exception. Each victim represented a calculated move, hunting them, overpowering them, and then leaving them to rot in the desolate wilderness. Experts believe his method of disposing of bodies in the desert wasn't just an attempt to elude law enforcement, but also a psychological statement, a demonstration of complete control. Wood exhibited the classic hallmarks of a serial offender: charm masking deceit, a lack of empathy, and chillingly methodical behavior. Profilers argue that his crimes were fueled by an intense need for power and a complete disregard for human life. Behind the headlines and court battles are 6 young women, all individuals with hopes, dreams, and families shattered by their unspeakable loss. They are not just names on a list. They were vibrant lives extinguished too soon. Their families have carried the weight of their absence for decades, haunted by the memories and the gruesome reality of what happened to their loved ones. This is what makes the case of the Desert Killer all the more poignant. Not just the crimes, but the humanity that was stolen along with them. Even as we review the details of Wood's crimes and psychological profile, lingering questions remain. Were there other victims who have yet to be found? Did Wood act alone? Or was there someone helping him carry out these heinous acts? And most chillingly of all, how does someone develop the capacity for this level of wickedness? The answers to these questions may never fully emerge, and they leave an unsettling taste in the mouths of investigators and true crime followers alike. The scheduled execution of David Leonard Wood on March 13, 2025, marks the impending conclusion of a nightmare that began decades ago. But will his death truly provide closure, or will it deepen the wounds of his victims' families and the community? Wood's case serves as a dark reminder of humanity's capacity for evil, while offering opportunities to analyze and learn from the patterns that define offenders like him. This isn't just a story of murder. It's a story of psychology, justice, and society's ongoing struggle to understand the minds of monsters. True crime stories often confront us with difficult truths about the world and ourselves. The tale of David Leonard Wood is no different. It forces us to question how we perceive justice, how we remember the victims, and how we reconcile the existence of individuals who commit such heinous acts. The Desert Killer leaves us with an undeniable sense of human fragility, but also the strength of those who have endured and sought justice in the face of incomprehensible loss. As we approach the date of his planned execution, the haunting legacy of Wood's crimes will continue to evoke questions, theories, and unease in the hearts of true crime enthusiasts everywhere. In a story where the desert itself holds secrets, one truth rings clear. The depths of the human psyche are more forbidding than even the harshest wastelands. David Leonard Wood has shown us the shadows that lurk within, forcing us to confront the unnerving duality of humanity. For every victim stolen, for every family devastated, and for every unanswered question, we are left with only one certainty: the legacy of the Desert Killer will never truly fade away.